Good afternoon. I'm Shayne Gibson, and I'm running for Caddo Parish Sheriff. I've been in law enforcement for about 28 years. Been police chief in Greenwood for the last 9. And again, I'm running for Caddo Sheriff and ask for your vote on October 14th. As I mentioned earlier, I've been a police officer for the last 28 years. I've spent the last 9 years as police chief in the town of Greenwood. So I've been on the streets. I've arrested folks. I've worked crashes. I've worked within a budget. I've never been over budget in the time that I've been police chief in Greenwood. I've got a human resources degree or a business management degree with a focus on human resources. So with the recruiting and retention that seems to be a problem right now, most of the area agencies are not fully staffed. Greenwood Police Department is fully staffed. I think that's part of my leadership and my leadership team that we've put together in Greenwood. And I think that we could do that for the Caddo Parish Sheriff's Office. I feel like the most prevalent crime that we have right now is the violent crime going on in Caddo Parish, primarily in the city of Shreveport. Most of the crime, in my experience, has been with juveniles or young offenders. I'm gonna say under the age of 25. They're stealing cars. They're dealing drugs. They're shooting each other, the whole 9 yards. So I feel like the best way we can combat this is to get into those communities and get in with the parents, the grandparents, the church leaders, the courts, whether it be the district court, whether it be the juvenile court, the different levels of law enforcement, just all the stakeholders in the community come together and try to figure out the best course of action for this. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. Probably not something that's going to happen in the next 3 to 4 years. The crime didn't get this bad overnight, and it's not going to get fixed overnight, but we need to start moving forward. I'm so glad you asked about mental health. That is one of the things that I've really focused on in my time at Greenwood Police Department, and I plan to continue that if elected as Sheriff of Caddo Parish. With and it's multifaceted. It's the officers, the employees, the deputies. We need to take care of their mental health, but we need to take care of the mental health for the residents or the citizens that we're taking care of. The officers need to be trained on how to handle their mental health and their mental wellness, to have their best mental wellness. And they need to be more training in dealing with those that are mentally ill or having a mental crisis. At Greenwood Police Department, I've got 10 full-time officers counting myself. 4 of us are certified peer support counselors through the Law Enforcement Alliance for Peer Support. 2 of my officers are members of the Critical Incident Stress Debriefing through the Southern Law Enforcement Foundation. Mental wellness is important, whether it's to the employees of the Sheriff's Office, to the employees of the Police Department, or in dealing with the citizens and residents on a day-to-day basis. I don't know if this is necessarily going to answer the question the way that you expect, but I'm not seeing a whole lot of success with that program or with those revisions. As a police chief in Greenwood, a small town, I still get out and work. I'm working side by side. I'm arresting folks. I'm working crashes, the whole 9 yards. But what I'm seeing is we're arresting so many people that have been released because of that program. I'm not saying trash the whole thing. I don't really know enough about it to say trash the whole thing, that it's not any good. But recidivism is a huge problem. There's a saying in law enforcement that 80% of our problem is with 20% of the population. And that 20% of the population is made up of a lot of the people that were released from the prisons a few years ago. There's already a lot of city and parish task forces, where the two entities are teaming up together. We've got a huge juvenile problem in Caddo Parish. Like where I'm chief in Greenwood, they're coming out and stealing a lot of cars in Greenwood, or they're coming out and burglarizing cars in Greenwood. And when we catch these juveniles, they're juveniles from Shreveport that have come out outside the city limits of Shreveport into another jurisdiction or into the parish to commit crimes. I'm going to go back to one of my earlier answers, and I'm going to say that we need to work with the juvenile court. The juvenile court, I'm not a juvenile court expert. I'm not going to tell the juvenile court how to fix things, just like I wouldn't tell a brain surgeon how to do brain surgery. But we can work together and find the best way to alleviate this problem. Again, we need all the stakeholders. We need the mamas, the daddies, the grandmas, the aunts, uncles, pastors, teachers, juvenile probation officers, juvenile court judges, juvenile prosecutors. We need to all get on the same page and work together to help eliminate this juvenile problem. The JDC and CCC being at capacity, it's been an issue as long as I've been policing in Caddo Parish, and I started policing in Caddo Parish in 1996. I remember years ago that CCC was closed to anything outside of felonies and warrants and domestic violence. If we had any other misdemeanor, we couldn't get them booked. JDC, sometimes we can't even get a juvenile booked into JDC for a domestic violence situation or a violent felony. It's a difficult situation. I think that if we worked with the district attorney's office in both the district court and the juvenile court, we might could help speed up the prosecution process. And I know a lot of times whenever I get a subpoena to go to court on a case that I've personally been involved in, sometimes I get 5, 6, 7 subpoenas before the case ever goes to trial, and then most of the time it's pled out to a lesser offense. So that's a long time, and quite often people they'll plead guilty to time served and get released immediately after they plead guilty. we need to speed that process up. As sheriff, I'll do what I can to help the district attorney's office, the juvenile courts with their processes. I've said in previous interviews that I have a good working relationship with the district attorney's office. I think that's important, whether it's the district attorney's office, whether it's Shreveport Police Department, Bossier City Police Department. It's important to have a network of people that you have a good relationship with, a good working relationship with. I know there's been a couple of cases where that the DA's office handled that I wasn't necessarily happy with the outcome of, and so I reached out to the DA's office and we had a conversation about it and figured out what went wrong and whether it was the officers didn't write a good enough report, a witness didn't show up to testify, or somebody in the system just completely dropped the ball. So we all just need to work together and work for the betterment of Caddo Parish as a whole. I believe a portion of that millage increase is dedicated toward the juvenile courts. The juvenile courts needs more funding. From what I understand, the Sheriff Prater has done a very good job with the finances at the sheriff's office, and there's actually a surplus at the sheriff's office. So I would focus on the part of the millage that is for the juvenile courts and get them the help they need to where maybe we can better serve the juveniles, whether that's better serve the juveniles and the parish, either by keeping those juveniles locked up or the ones that can be helped, getting them into programs that we can rehab them before they're too far gone. I've never been a tax collector. Don't know a whole lot about collecting taxes. However, I know I've got people in my network that can help guide us in the right direction, whether that's to be centralized or follow some other process that works in another state or another part of the state, or but I don't really know enough about tax collection to really hold a intelligent conversation right now about it. A couple of things that are important to me. I've always been an advocate for highway safety. You know, we've had a lot of people killed in Caddo Parish and Shreveport in particular this year by violent crime. But over half that many were killed on the highways in 2022. I believe it was 46 fatal accidents last year where 47 people were killed on the highways of Caddo Parish. I think right now we're up to 56, 58 homicides for the year in Shreveport. So people are being killed. They're not coming home to their families, whether it's violent crime or whether it is highway safety. I think both of those need to be focused on. I currently serve on the governor's DWI and Vehicular Homicide Task Force. I have since April of 22. I serve on the Northwest Louisiana Transportation Safety Coalition as a impaired driving lead in that organization. And I feel like we need to focus on traffic enforcement, and then that traffic enforcement can bleed over. Probably wasn't the best term to use, but can't come up with another one right now. The traffic enforcement, criminal interdiction, can find the impaired drivers and can find the fugitives. It can find the people that are wanted for violent crimes, because let's face it, we all travel in cars. And so I feel like those two aspects with the mental illness, or not the mental illness, but the mental wellness assets that we talked about earlier, I feel like if we proactively go after the criminals, proactively work together, proactively train, whether that's in mental wellness, whether that's in how to deal with folks, conduct investigations, handling evidence, and we all work together, it'll work out for the best of this community.